Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Hannah Fung. I'm the International Project Manager at the Leadership Foundation, and it is my great pleasure to introduce to you today Professor Bob Cryan, Vice-Chancellor at the University of Huddersfield, who will be talking about the Naked Vice-Chancellor. Please welcome him to the stage.
Well, good afternoon everyone, and I guess the observant amongst you will realise that I'm fully dressed. I intend to stay that way. I'll explain why the Naked VC shortly, but I just need to give a few words of context and explanation. I'm from Huddersfield, so straight away there's a tremendous amount of passion for my hometown and my hometown university. Where we are at the moment, we're about 22,000 students, about 2,800 staff on the payroll, and we recruit from over 130 different countries, so we have internationalised. And we make a contribution of about 300 million to the local economy. There's three reasons why I've decided to call this talk the Naked Vice-Chancellor. The first is my association with the top management programme, TMP6, was of course before I became a Vice-Chancellor. So any colleagues here today that were on TMP6 saw me without my Vice-Chancellor robes on. In other words, naked. The second reason was last year I found myself over in Leeds sitting an examination, and just before it was starting I was sat there looking at the exam paper, the calculator, the pen, and I suddenly realised that actually this was a naked academic. There was nobody else there to help me, no senior team, no university secretary, no legal advisors. It was just Bob Cryan, a pen and a script. Everything was stripped away. And why did I do that? It's because it's over 25 years since I did my first degree, and I felt that I was starting to lose track of what it was like to be a student and what the reality was. So I re-immersed myself and became a student again, and it was part of me revisiting my right to be a Vice-Chancellor, in other words, my authenticity. The third reason was when I first became a Vice-Chancellor, I asked to see the longest serving member of staff in the university. And he came along to my office and he had a cup and saucer and he was physically shaking. And he was shaking because he was coming to see the Vice-Chancellor. And I remember sitting there thinking, this will never work. If people are afraid of me, we'll never ever get the traction that we need to make the university move forward. If people are doing things because they're frightened of the Vice-Chancellor, rather than because they passionately believe in what the Vice-Chancellor stands for and what he's trying to do, we'll never ever move forward. So I decided to systematically strip away that kind of Vice-Chancellor role and strip down to the person underneath, which of course is Bob Cryan, a passionate lad from Huddersfield that wants to see his town do well and that wants to see the university do well. So the theme of my talk really is about authenticity. It's about personal authenticity and it's about institutional authenticity. And I'll reflect it in what we've actually done on the journey that we've had over the last 7 years. And it has been an amazing 7 years. If I just think of the awards that we've won in the last 18 months, which is recognition of Team Huddersfield's hard work, it started in November 2012 when we got Entrepreneurial University of the Year. In February 2013, I was deeply honoured to receive the Guardian Inspiring Leader Award, which of course was sponsored by the Leadership Foundation. April of that year, we won the Queen's Award for Enterprise. In June, we won a Thelma for Outstanding Registrar. In November, we got University of the Year. And then in January this year, we got the Outstanding University Workplace, or Best University Workplace to Work at. That kind of is a culmination of all the hard work that we've done by just asking the question, what does authenticity mean? And that now permeates the whole institution. And if I give you some examples, we started by thinking about what way we can harness the energies of the institution. We've all been in universities that have long strategies, and these strategy documents often get put in the top drawer, never to be seen again. What we try to do at the University of Huddersfield is keep the communications very, very simple. 2 sides of A4, a very straightforward vision, built around 3 very simple words, about being inspiring, about being innovative, and about being international. Something that every member of staff could get behind, so we could ask them, what are you doing that's inspirational, what are you doing that's international, what are you doing that's innovative. and people had to think about their answers. And that then led us into some very, very fundamental questions. Everybody in this room is a leader, and I think a question that we should always ask ourselves is, why should anybody follow us? And we translated that into the inspiration. And fundamentally, what we're talking about is teachers inspiring students. So the fundamental question that was asked in terms of authenticity is, what gives you the right to teach our students? And we examined this closely within the organisation, and the net effect is we felt collectively we ought to demonstrate our teaching authenticity by either getting teaching qualification or becoming a fellow of the Higher Education Academy. Now you've got to bear in mind the starting point of, like many universities, was fairly low, but we managed to carry out a major transformation and bring ourselves up to 100% fellowship of the Higher Education Academy. That kind of demonstrates, by asking that fundamental question about what gives you the right, you can get some really big transformations. The end result of that focus is that we've also got national teaching fellowships every year since 2008, and in fact we top the league table from that. Good teaching should lead to good outcomes, and that fundamental focus has led to us being in the top 10 averaged over the last 3 years for graduate destinations. We also switched our attention to that second eye, that innovation. What gives you the right to be an academic? Where does your academic authenticity comes from? And we said, actually, what universities are fundamentally about are the creation and dissemination of knowledge. So again, big internal discussion. How do we demonstrate our academic authenticity? It's through knowledge creation. It's through publishing, through supervising PhDs, through holding higher doctorates, through getting a doctorate in the first place. Again, some really big transformations took place by questioning the authenticity, and we actually tripled the number of staff that either have a PhD or are currently studying for a PhD. We tripled the number of postgraduate researchers in the university in terms of research students, doubled our research income. So by asking these fundamental questions, we got some really big transformations. Likewise, on the international side, that third eye of the vision, we said, what kind of university do we want to be? Why aren't we international? And we set about a big transformation on that international agenda. Again, through discussions with staff, what kind of organisation do we want to be? How many international students should we have? The transformation that took place by asking that authentic question was literally a quadrupling of the number of international students and the Queen's Award for Enterprise International Development. We also asked similar questions on the other main aspects of the university. In terms of institutional authenticity, why would anybody want to work here? A very basic question. What kind of institution do we want to be? And it was all about the values of the organisation. And we had a big discussion about values, and at one stage we had 54 words describing the different values of the organisation. But when we filtered them down, it actually filtered nicely down to around 6 categories. So we built it around the word aspire. And that's to seek ambitiously. That's what we all wanted. That's what Team Huddersfield wanted for the organisation. To move forward and to seek ambitiously. So we ended up building the values around being ambitious, around being student-centred, around being pioneering, acting with integrity, with respect, and striving for excellence. So we chose the word aspire. And again, that's led to a fantastic transformation in the university. We all understand our values, we all know what kind of institution we want to be, and that's why it's such a happy place, and that's why we did extremely well in the Times Higher Best University Workplace. And what we found is that by very, very carefully focusing in on what we mean by authenticity, we've had big transformations. Again, if I look at the state of the university, very fundamental question, would you want your son or daughter to study here? When we looked at parts of our estate, the answer was no. At the time, we wouldn't. So again, big transformations took place, and we've actually either refurbished or newly built 52% of the estate over the last 5 years. Again, a big transformation. The biggest thing that we've done is to create the financial headroom to do all of this. And that was back to a fundamental question about what sort of institution we want to be. Do we want to be an organisation that has debt? We're a northern institution, we're debt averse, and the answer was no. So in 3 years, we moved from 30% of income being the size of our debt to 0. So we're now a debt-free organisation that allows us that financial headroom to carry out the rest of the transformation that I've talked about. So in short, what we've found is that by thinking about personal authenticity and thinking about institutional authenticity, we've managed to carry out some major transformations. So the thoughts I'd like to leave you with is, where do you get your personal authenticity from? And a question that we ask ourselves continuously in the university: if I was to apply for my job today, would I get it? And if not, what am I going to do about it? Thank you very much, everyone.